I just found out I ruined my sister's life by being the cause of her breakup with her long-term partner. I feel like such a chain and a burden on her life. I've honestly never felt more like I just want to disappear. How can I talk her into focusing on her own life first? I'm a disabled 21-year-old male, and I live with my older sister, who's 27. I've been a paraplegic since I was a kid, as a result of an accident. Our remaining parent, our dad, is pretty old and sick. He's in an old folks' home. My sister takes me to see him occasionally. My sister is pretty much my full-time carer. She has her own job, which she works to support both of us. When she's not on her job, she's usually taking care of me. She's had a very serious boyfriend for 9 years. They've been in a relationship since she was 18, and it's always been a very serious relationship as far as I can tell. He's a really good guy and has always been nice to me. He also hasn't shied away from offering financial help once in a while. I know my sister has always dreamt of marriage. We talk about it so much, me and her, ever since we were kids. We do play weddings, and she would always imagine the day she would get married, spending hours looking at bridal dresses. Even as adults, she would fantasize about getting married and spend a lot of time looking at bridal dresses, talking about her dream wedding and what kind of house she'd like to have. She had names picked out for the kids since she was a kid herself, and she's always stuck with those names. So yeah, she's always dreamed of getting married and having a family for a long time. Her current boyfriend has been with her for so long and has been so good to her. I figured he would always be the one to marry her, and I'd be happy for her. Finally, she'd have someone to take care of her instead of her having to take care of me all the time. Well, that all came crumbling down. She returned home one day, a complete mess, crying and pouring her eyes out all over the place. She told me they had broken up. She was so sad. Oh, so sad. It was heartbreaking to see. It was like a dagger in my heart to see her crying and upset like that. And I felt so useless because all I could offer were meaningless words. She couldn't tell me why. I figured she just didn't want to talk about it. After a few days, she still didn't want to talk about it, and she was still incredibly upset, crying a lot. I told her I'm her brother. I may be physically disabled, but my heart and mind still work perfectly. She can talk to me about anything. Very reluctantly and with pushing, she opened up about it. She told me her boyfriend had proposed to her. I told her, that's excellent. Why did they break up? She had always wanted to get married and been waiting years for this. She told me they talked about it, and her boyfriend wanted her to move in with him. They would find a separate carer for me to look after, and they would still see me occasionally, but I would not visit them, and my sister would no longer be my carer at all. My sister told me she couldn't accept that, and that was the offer on the table as her boyfriend wanted it. She said she couldn't accept it. They couldn't reconcile their different wants, and they broke up. I told her she's crazy, she should have chosen her boyfriend. I know she loved him so much, and he was crazy about her. She should have gone and gotten married. She can't stay tied to me forever. She should live her own life and have her own family. She was still crying heavily, and she told me she realized that she would never be able to have that. All the stuff she wanted as a kid. To be a bride, have a wedding, have a family. None of it would ever happen. She would be taking care of me forever. I insisted to her, telling her she didn't need to take care of me forever. Ever, I emphasized, she should live her own life. She said no, that's what she wants, and that's the way it has to be. She would have it no other way. When I kept insisting, she said no, that's it, she's in charge. She makes her own life decisions, and I should stop telling her how to live her life. She got angry at me, and I quickly apologized. She said it's okay, but I could tell she was really upset and in a bad mood. Why is she doing this to herself? I don't understand. Doesn't she see that I don't want her to sacrifice herself like this? Why did she just give up her boyfriend of 9 years like that? She loved him so much, and he loved her. Why did she just push him away like that? Why is she hurting herself like this? I don't want her to be hurting herself just for my sake. I never asked her to make this sacrifice of herself. I told her I wouldn't mind getting another carer for me. She said no. It's her. It has to be her. It's her job, her duty to me, and to her family. She has to take care of me always. She wouldn't have it any other way, no matter how much I tried to reason. I hate myself so much right now. I've never hated being disabled more than right now in my life. I feel like a baby or something, like a useless animal. I feel like a ball and chain, like a burden, tying her down to the ground and preventing her from living her own life. All I want her to do is to be happy and live her life, and be happy and beautiful on her wedding day, like she's always wanted, not stuck forever taking care of her disabled brother. I wish I could just die to free her of her burden. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't seriously considered just killing myself so she could finally be free and pursue her own life. I'm not just saying that. I'm serious. I know she'd mourn me for a while, even a few years, but after that, she'd move on, get married, and live her life like she's always wanted. It might be the only way she ever knows true happiness. I tried to convince her, but she seems determined to bog herself down like this. I don't understand. She's not being reasonable. She's not looking out for what's best for herself. Why is she doing this? How can I get her to focus on herself and her own life? Please, guys, help me out. How can I talk some sense into her? How can I convince her to put her needs ahead of my own and go focus on her life? Mainly so she can live the life she's always wanted instead of being tied down to me. How can I convince her of this? Please help. I feel so desperate and sad for her. Oh man, this is hard to read, and I don't even know what you would do here. I mean, if convincing her isn't working, then maybe the original poster, OP, needs to take the initiative and get out of there himself. Obviously, easier said than done being a paraplegic, but maybe he could find someone like a carer himself. I don't know, just something to get the ball rolling and moving on. Let's go to the comments. Alright, so my brother has epilepsy. He cannot work because he has so many seizures during the day and cannot drive, etc. When my parents are no longer able to care for him, I will not do so by force or guilt, but because he's my brother and I love him. My long-term boyfriend knows this, and we've talked about him living with us in the future and how he will handle it and whatnot. We all live together now, so it's no big deal. Well, if your sister chose you, it's because she cares very deeply for you, not because you're a burden or out of guilt. Her ex basically wanted nothing to do with you, and she wasn't having that. I wouldn't either, to be honest. She'll find someone who accepts her role in your life and won't make her choose, just like I did. Can you contact a social worker to work as a mediator between the two of you, so that you can get the care you need but still maintain a relationship with her in which she is just your sister, not your carer? Op replies, absolutely, there are many options. I discussed it with her and told her I could easily find programs that would provide a carer, albeit with added expenses, so my sister no longer has to be my carer and she can go and live her own life. She wasn't interested. She's absolutely stubborn and determined. She seems to have it stuck in her head that she has to be my carer permanently. I don't know why. Okay, I'm a 34-year-old man whose little brother, 30, I'll call him Q, is fairly severely autistic. Right now, he lives with my mom, but within the next few years, it will be me. The fact is, unless you're willing to pay privately, the care provided by the state is almost always very minimal. I know lots of people who work on those group homes, and honestly, I'd not send a stranger to live there, let alone my own flesh and blood. I've always been very upfront with girlfriends that Q will live with me and us in the future. He's fairly independent but requires daily care over and above what the social services caregivers provide. It's cost me a few relationships, but never anything as long as 9 years. It's sad what happened to her relationship. Her mistake was not making clear very early what her future life would look like. The really weird part, quote, they would find a separate carer for me to look after. They would still see me occasionally, but I would not visit them, and my sister would no longer be my carer at all. Wait, you're not allowed to visit them? That's messed up. Look, your care situation is what it is. You need what you need. If your sister's husband wants to pay someone to do that for you, then cool, but restricting you from visiting is wrong. Restricting how much she can see you is also wrong. The fact is, this situation sucks. Your sister lost this relationship. It really does. But she's the one who has to get up every morning and look in the mirror. She's the one who has to live with herself. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I abandoned Q. Even if it cost me personally, my own morals prevent me from shunting him into a crap care situation. His family and I are going to care for my family. I'll never be one of those guys who knocks up a girl and runs away. I'd never be able to live with myself. I'll never be one of those people who sends their disabled brother away. I'd never be able to live with myself if this is even close to how she feels. I understand her. I get that you feel like a burden, but part of accepting her as a partner is accepting her family. Her boyfriend was not able to do that. He couldn't accept her as she is. He wanted to change her. She refused, and they broke up. She's the one who has to deal with herself. I would feel tremendous guilt if I sent my brother away, and I imagine she feels the same. The real issue here is the boyfriend. What the hell did he expect? I imagine they've talked about you before. Okay, please hear me out. She's been dating a guy for 9 years and has been your caregiver and lived with you that entire time. Her boyfriend knew about your relationship with her and knew how important you were in her life. And this guy dumped her immediately after proposing marriage because she wasn't willing to leave you or put you in care. What kind of person does any of that? You didn't ruin your sister's life. She can still get married. There are billions of men in the world. Her boyfriend clearly didn't know your sister very well if he thought she would put you in care. The way he did that sounds very manipulative. I think your sister needs therapy. Her fiancé recommended a separate caregiver for you. You recommended a separate caregiver for you, and she still won't accept it. I think it was very rash of her to make such a unilateral decision without consulting you. Yes, she helps provide your care, but you also get a say in it. You want her to have her own life, and she should be respectful of that desire. I can't tell you what's making her hold herself down like this, despite you giving your blessing, and I really think she needs a therapist to help her understand why she is so unwilling to live her own life. Please don't beat yourself up over this. She is making her own choices here, and that isn't your fault. Yeah, interesting. There's a little bit of a mix in the comments here. I kind of started off with the sentiment of that last comment, but I really like those comments that pointed out what the boyfriend was doing in all of this, like what that comment said. He's trying to change her, and she doesn't want that, and honestly, fair enough. Let's go to the update. Okay, so this is an update to the post I made 2 nights ago. I just want to say first of all, thank you so much to all of those who posted extremely kind and heartwarming comments. That was amazing of you. Thank you so much. I'm also feeling much better now. I understand things much clearer and have talked it over with my sister. It seems I was confused, and in the heat of the moment, there was a lot of misunderstanding. I've talked it all over with my sister, and we're both feeling much better and brighter now, and we agree things may have turned out for the best. I now realize, after my sister explained it to me, that he was not right for her, even though they'd been together for so long. I guess the length of their relationship had left me with a false impression. Firstly, as my sister explained it, it seems he didn't say I couldn't visit at all, as I had thought she had meant, but that I just couldn't visit whenever I wanted to. They've set times and schedules for when I could visit, to ensure I wasn't overwhelming them all the time, interrupting and interfering with their lives. However, it seems my sister didn't like this at all. She said she realized her boyfriend had a problem with me and wanted to place some distance between her and me, and she wasn't okay with that at all. I told her I thought she loved him. She said she thought she did too, but she knows her priorities in life, and she's old enough and mature enough to be able to decide what she wants from life and what her priorities are. I told her I thought she'd always wanted to get married and have children and a family ever since she was young. She explained to me she still does, to a certain extent, but only if the conditions are right. She said that she was a different person when she was younger. Now that she's older, her ideals and priorities had changed. She said that if she does get married, it's basically like what one commenter described as a package deal. I'd have to be included in the family too, and I'd have to live with them and be part of their family full time. She said if any potential husband couldn't accept that, then he could get stuffed, and she didn't want him. That's basically what she thinks of her now ex-boyfriend, and she said she feels much more positive about her future now that he's gone. She said, while she was with him, she was also feeling unsure about what the future held in relation to her and me. But now that she's made her firm decision, she knows she'll never let go of me. I asked her, what if this means that she'll never get married? What if it means that she never ends up finding a guy who's okay with all of this and is willing to settle down with her, with me in the picture? She said, if that's the case, then so be it. As she explained it, she basically said, I'm her family now. I exist, and I'm the most important thing to her. She won't sacrifice me for a hypothetical husband and hypothetical children who don't yet exist but may one day. She said, priority number one for her will always be me, and taking care of me throughout my life and disability. She couldn't imagine living her life without it. I told her, but she didn't feel she was severely limiting herself by chaining herself to me. Didn't she feel she was severely restricting her opportunities in life and what she could become? She explained that her years with me and taking care of me had helped form part of her identity. Taking care of me now is part of her identity and character. It's one of the things she lives for. I found that amazing, but she said she could have it no other way. I provide to her just as much as she provides to me, she said, and perhaps even more. I told her she was exaggerating, but she insisted it was absolutely true. She explained how the mere fact of her looking after me and her taking care of me day in and day out brings so much joy and happiness to her life. She doesn't know how she could ever live without it, and to her, it's so much more important than the possibility of having a husband or children. I found it difficult to wrap my head around that. I joked that I really can't imagine that it's always that fun, especially when she's, say, wiping crap from my ass or something. She just laughed and explained how sometimes something that can superficially seem gross, disgusting, or painful can still be beautiful and cherished when you look at the love involved. She used the example of a mother giving birth after 9 months of sickness and a swollen body. She has her body ripped open. There's blood everywhere, screaming and crying, and it's the most intense physical pain of her life. But at the end of it all, it's still beautiful because it's an act of love. And she endures all that pain to bring to life someone whom she will love forever. So yes, even acts like wiping crap from my ass, as gross and disgusting as it may seem to some, is in and of itself an act of love. It's an example of how much she, as a sister, cherishes me as her brother and the length she will go to as a result of that relationship. And that, I think, is beautiful and true love. Now I have a completely new outlook on her and our life. It's much more positive, and I no longer see myself as a burden or a chain. She helped me realize my own self-worth and value. I'm not just some disabled guy in a wheelchair that needs help. I'm a brother, and I provide love, friendship, and value to this amazing, beautiful, kind-hearted woman I'm so proud to call my sister. I no longer have any thoughts about ending my life at all, because I realize how much I'm worth to her, and how much I mean to her, and how much it would hurt her if I did that. I could never bear to do that. So, I just thought I'd share that update with you all. After all, those incredibly warm and supportive comments you gave me were so uplifting. I can honestly say, even though I may be physically disabled, I consider myself to have this amazing gift. Because I'm blessed with love, and this love is the most amazing thing in the world. I can't imagine living without it. Thank you all so very, very much. Let's read some final comments. My brother is mentally delayed, and he thinks my husband is his best friend. I don't think I could have married this man if my brother didn't like him. This is such a sad post. My brother has, in terrible moments, said things like, it would be better if he was dead, and it's always rattled me for days. I can't imagine what his sister would feel if he told her his dying would be easier. I hope his sister finds someone worth it and has all the happiness in the world. A comment replies, we have a friend who had an accident in his teens, and he's a paraplegic. He has a serious brain injury, and he has 3 siblings. They routinely squabble about who is going to keep him when the parents can no longer be primary carers. They all love and want him, and their own families, who have only known him in his current state, all love and want him. Damn, I'm tearing up just thinking about how they care for each other. I'm not going to comment on the relationship between all these people, as it's so complex and I have no experience in this type of situation at all. I do wonder about the OP's independence, though. He is a paraplegic, and many paraplegics work full or part-time. He doesn't touch on his daily life at all, which is understandable since that's not what he was asking about. I just hope this young man and his sister are taking full advantage of any services available to help him reach his potential in life. He's only 21. College, job training, or even a hobby are definitely things he might want to think about looking into. This could help create a more balanced relationship between him and his sister. Whatever you may think of the enmeshment between Op and his sister, the ex-boyfriend, is an a-hole. Here, he didn't propose with strings attached. That completely changed someone's life. If he had an issue with the sister being Op's carer, He needed to raise it before now, and either accept it or move on. Not dangle a proposal in front of her as an ultimatum. Op and his sister do need to work on getting some independence and utilizing the services available to them, but that doesn't absolve the ex from his attempt to manipulate the sister with a ring instead of raising his concerns properly. I feel so conflicted on this. On the one hand, Op is part of his sister's life regardless, but it seems like the boyfriend really wanted to marginalize him and clean him out of their lives. You could have a situation where she's not his primary caretaker, but still is a central part of the family. The fact that the boyfriend was not even willing to consider that speaks to a fundamental incompatibility. But I do think the sister has boxed herself, and possibly Op into a corner to some degree. It's not all or nothing, obviously. We don't know all the details, but it's not clear that the extent of the disability precludes the possibility of at least partial independence. What does Op's future look like? Does he want to study? Work? It feels like he feels totally defined by his disability, and his sister by her role as carer. Neither of them can envision anything else. Her dedication is beautiful, but I think there's also a lot of safety in remaining in that role, as there was likely safety in remaining with her high school boyfriend for so long without talking about long-term plans or addressing real concerns. I don't know, these situations are so complicated, and we can't know the details. It seems there are no people in real life who can provide them with support. I don't want to discount the experience of people with disabilities or their families, but the fact that we acknowledge both caretaker burnout and the importance of accessibility means that there is value in finding a middle road. Here, some interesting comments at the end there. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts about that one down in the comments. Anyway, we're going to move on to another story. Alrighty, on relationships again. This one was written by user 10 Points Font, and it's titled, My Boyfriend Erased the Whiteboard. I had my novel timeline on it for 3 years. I've been working on a novel for about a year. I write every day, even just a sentence. 6 months ago, my college switched to smartboards and put all their whiteboards in the garbage. I grabbed 2 because I have huge wall space open in my living room. Most of my writing is done on my Google Drive, but I have things like character personalities, names, places, and a general timeline, etc. You know, stuff I want to remember. I used to take photos of it so I have my ideas with me. I used to write on my lunch break, but I stopped doing that because I burned myself out and my writing quality took a huge dive. Plus, my boyfriend helps me write, and it helps us connect in such a deep way, so I haven't taken a photo in about 3 months. The whiteboards are nice because I can read my notes across the room while I'm sitting in my favorite chair. I got home last night and all of my stuff was erased. It was like a train of thought, like I'd come home and jotted something down. Handwriting is way more cathartic for me. I had sketches of things in the novel. I'd basically have to go through and remember every single thing on it. I have a lot of it stored in my head or on my Google Drive, but there are some things I'll never get back. But it's the fact that he erased it. We don't live together. He told me I've been focusing too much on it and have no time for him. We hang out at my house 5 to 6 nights a week. I write while he plays video games. It's a good dynamic, and I thought we enjoyed it. We are always laughing, and he helps me with my wording, and I Google stuff to help him in his game. This is the first time he's mentioned it bothering him. If he had brought it up, we could have talked about it, but he went nuclear, and I have no idea why. I don't know what to do. I'm so frustrated. We've had one serious argument over his driving, and he got better. My family took him on vacation a few weeks ago. We watch his nephew all the time. His family paid for my entire spring semester. We are so much a part of each other's lives, and I feel so hurt and heartbroken. He's my muse, and just the other day, we went to the jewelry store to look at rings. My feelings rotate between rage, sadness, confusion, sorrow, and anger. How do I even approach this? Last night, I was so upset I asked him to leave. He hasn't texted, he hasn't called, he hasn't stopped by. I keep typing in questions to ask but keep erasing them. Why did you do it? Are you unhappy with our relationship? What did I do? I'm even more heartbroken due to the fact that he hasn't called or texted all day. I'm afraid to call him. I don't want to hear him say he thinks we should break up, or he doesn't want to be with me when I'm writing, or just ignore my call. Yeah, it definitely seems fishy that he doesn't seem to want to do anything to make up for it, or even apologize at this point. Let's go to the comments. Holy crap, as a fellow writer, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't bothered by this. This is the first time he's mentioned it, and if this is true, he jumped straight to sabotage. This is messed up. It's messed up regardless because I'm sure your boyfriend knows how important this work is to you. For him not to try to talk to you about this after 3 years is mind-boggling. Who does this? Text him the dreaded, "We need to talk" message. Ask him when he's available, and have him come over to use his words like a goddamn adult. Also, take his key away or change your locks if you don't want to be that upfront about it. He lost his privileges, to be honest. In all sincerity, I don't know if this is something I could move past. It comes off as so cruel. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he chose to go into your home when you weren't there because he knew he was doing something wrong. He either knows he effed up or he feels as though he's in the right, and that's why he hasn't reached out to you. I'm shocked and appalled on your behalf, OP. This was an unbelievably messed up way to deal with those feelings. I hate your boyfriend right now. Remember in Little Women, when Amy burned Joe's book because Joe wouldn't let her come to the theater with her? That was pretty messed up, but ultimately, Amy was a child and she would grow up to be better. Your boyfriend can't do better than the most hated March sister. He's showing you that when he doesn't get his way, he will punish you and destroy the things you care about. This isn't an isolated incident. It's an important piece of information about his character. If he comes back with a massive apology and a plan for how he's going to deal with his feelings in the future in a non-destructive way, then maybe I'd say it's worth a conversation about continuing this relationship. Op replies, I actually haven't read Little Women, but I ordered it for my Kindle. It's just so the blue part of me wonders if there's something going on with him beyond what he said. I don't know. This is really freaked up. As another fellow writer, I honestly would have broken down. That's so much work just down the drain. Just because you wanted to get your work completed. It's ridiculous, honestly. If it were me, I'd have to fist fight the guy after I've stopped crying over destroyed work. Going by what a comment said, definitely take his key away. There's no doghouse, or you can get this back when you earn it back about it. Of person. Ally being in this situation where I've had my old Noella notebooks used in a grill fire and with truth, I've never accepted the apologies. The person isn't even a friend to me anymore. Not saying you should dump him or break ties with him in general, or not at all. However, I do say there should be a conversation about the relationship in here somewhere. If he can't handle you being immersed in something you've put years into, something you love, he's not ready to date any type of creator, to be quite honest. It's scary that he honestly thought that destroying anything that looked remotely important was the best thing to do in this situation. But when you regain yourself, try and retrace your steps. Now that he's hiding from you, try and rebalance. Your world building. Some new things might even come out of it. Keep your head up, friend, and hopefully, you can pull back some information and call back from there. It'll be difficult, but you can do it. Op replies, he stood there, and he seemed so, I don't know, proud, happy, vindicated. I've had my jaw drop once before in my lifetime, to the ventriloquist girl who was on America's Got Talent. LOL, I didn't know it was actually a feeling of shock and awe. It did last night. Right before I blinked out and woke up face down on my bed. Asking him to leave. Okay. Hope he makes an update. It's been about 3 months since I made my post. This somehow seems like it got really long. The night I made my post, I went to a friend's house, and she ordered a pizza. We got ice cream and a bottle of wine. She's a straight shooter, takes a neutral approach, and she gives solid relationship advice, so I felt comfortable talking to her about everything. She couldn't figure out why he had done it. We went over how he and I hung out, how much he seemed to care about me, how we looked into each other's eyes, but it also revealed a lot of hesitation on my part. I'm a positive person and tend to forgive faults or overlook them. I suspected some sort of coping method from my childhood. We had some unresolved issues. I think he was holding in, but when I'd bring them up, he'd just kind of get salty and go, "It's fine, I don't care anymore." But he'd bring them up in arguments. I didn't realize how toxic it was. That same night, I told him I was coming over the next day to talk about things. I told him I'd be over around 11, and the only thing he texted me was okay, which I didn't respond to. I went over to his house at 11, and he was still asleep. He got upset when I woke him up. It took the wind out of my sails on a good day. I cry if something upsets me, but I was so angry and heartbroken I couldn't even think. I left without saying a word to him. He didn't follow me on my way out. I went to the kitchen and took my house key from his key ring. I drove home, and in the days that followed, I collected all his things, put them in a box on my porch, and texted him to come get them. He said, "What the hell? That's fine. I'll come by later and pick them up." I went out with a few girlfriends. We got day drunk and had some amazing food. It made me feel better, but when I got home and his things were gone, I was heartbroken. I never texted him. He never texted me. I got absolutely no closure. Even though people say closure is bull crap, I've had the hardest time moving on. It's been 3 months, and I still cry in the shower sometimes. Even though I broke up with him, I still feel so confused and heartbroken. I never figured out why he did what he did, and I likely never will. I miss his help and companionship. I'd love to come here and say I finished my book, but I haven't written much since I can't get into my characters' heads anymore. There's a feeling of loneliness and grief, and that sort of helped me create a better outline, but I can't write about my characters. The other day, I went to the bookstore to study. I ended up looking at books related to time travel and found one that has thousands of positive reviews. My novel is science fiction, and I've been trying to think of how to incorporate time travel, so it kind of lined up perfectly. It turns out a lot of my ideas mirror theoretical physics. It's eerie. I've never taken physics or read about it, but suddenly string theory makes sense, and cosmology makes sense. I'm blown away, and it makes me feel so weird that so much of my plot has been studied so in depth. The book has lit a fire under me. Reading more about everything makes me so excited, and it's helped me really flesh out my plot. I can't put it down and read 20 or so pages a night. I haven't actually made time to sit and read a book for years. I always have a notebook with me now, so I write my ideas down. I haven't written about my characters yet, but my passion is back, and my plot is making more sense now. I don't care much about how we broke up. I'm not confused. I sometimes get sad at night, or during the day, or if I go out and make prolonged eye contact with a guy I haven't thought about dating, and I'm still too hurt to pursue it. But every day, I move on a little bit more. I wanted to thank everyone who gave me advice. I forgot about my post until just now, and when I went back to read through it, it made me realize how seriously messed up it was and gave me closure. Thank you. One comment says the way he reacted when waking up at 11 a.m., going no contact literally the moment he was cast out, shows there were deeper problems. That, in the erasure of the notes, is some stupid amount of a holer. Another comment adds, she has no idea what bullet she just dodged. He erased the notes after they went ring shopping. A lot of violent abuse users are perfect and lovely until they have you trapped, marriage, a house together, a baby. Once you're tied to them, then they ramp it up. They almost always start with a test first, and breaking sentimental or important items of the other person is a huge one. He was about to put a ring on it, so she couldn't get away. Thank God he did this first. It reminds me of that post about that guy that put bleach in his wife's plants to bring her down a peg. Anyone who destroys something their significant other loves just because they love it doesn't deserve to have a significant other. That sort of cruelty is just wrong. Yeah, I think it's safe to say I agree wholeheartedly with those comments. What about you guys? Let me know your thoughts about that one down below. Anyway, we're going to move on to another story. Okay, still on relationships. This one was written by user Quadinos, and it's titled, My Parents Withheld a Diagnosis from Me for 15 Years. I, female 18, had an interesting childhood. I spent my early years being taken to several neurologists and psychiatrists because I had severe developmental delay. At first, I was told I had a neurodevelopmental disorder, ASD, but my parents dismissed it and sought another opinion. I've always been told the diagnosis was actually incorrect because it wasn't carried out properly. I was 3 years old at the time of the diagnosis. My parents keep all their medical records in a box in the attic of our house. My medical records are also there, and I check them from time to time. Today, I found my ASD diagnosis report and read it. 7 tests were carried out to diagnose it by psychologists, and one of the tests involved my parents. The report clearly states I have ASD. There is another note by a psychiatrist that also states I had ASD when I was 5 years old. My speech therapist reports also said I exhibited symptoms of ASD. There are no other documents related to the ASD. It seems like this condition is lifelong and doesn't go away. I still don't fully trust or believe the diagnosis, especially after a lifetime of my parents pretending it wasn't there. It makes me wonder if it was a valid diagnosis. However, all the signs point to my parents deliberately hiding this from me for 15 years. It's not a condition that would kill me, but it would have been nice to know when I got bullied or my mental health got worse and I wondered what was wrong with me. I don't know if I should tell my parents, or if I should tell anyone, or if I should tell a doctor. What can I do with my shiny new, actually really old diagnosis? I'm at a loss. It's the second time my parents have withheld a medical diagnosis from me. Yeah, it's obviously not right for them to do that and pretty neglectful, in all honesty. Let's see what the comments think. I have a friend who, through his entire life, has apparently had ADHD. In school, he struggled socially, had a lot of incidents and outbursts, and there were no surprises when he was diagnosed as an adult. Medication, information, understanding, and adapting to this diagnosis have made his life much easier. When asking his parents why they didn't follow up on this, their response was that they didn't want him to be different. My friend is not sure if he's angry with his parents, or not because he's happy with the life he has today. He might not have been the same person or had the same friends, etc., but if asked if he would do the same with his own child, the answer is no. Of course, he would want to help the child rather than pretending everything was normal. I think it's also a part that for a lot of parents, admitting that there is something inherently wrong with their child is information that they're unable to cope with. They emotionally reason themselves into the best-case scenario in order to avoid having to suffer the emotional burden of knowing their child has to suffer and struggle being different. But the child still suffers and struggles, and even more so when the parents pretend things are fine. The child gets no help and just ends up concluding that their shortcomings are personal failures, and they start hating themselves. In my eyes, it is parental neglect to dismiss and not seriously follow up on professional guidance. You could have had a much easier childhood. Teachers and children often behave differently in school when they learn that another child has a medical condition that they need to accommodate and be mindful of. You could have gotten better help in your development years to prevent secondary issues affecting your mental health by preventing shameful emotions and thoughts from tearing at your self-esteem and self-worth. Online, I read that while there is no cure for autism spectrum disorder, intensive early treatment can make a big difference in the lives of many children. So, I wouldn't say nice to know. I would call them out for parental neglect, but get a professional opinion behind you first. Don't face your parents with accusations alone, because you'll just face the same willful ignorance that makes up their reality. If you do, come over to r/autism in women and see if you relate. I guess I'm sorry your parents denied you information about yourself, whether it has impacted your life or not, and I suspect it has. You deserve to have that information and context about your own brain. I grew up before it was common to diagnose women with any autism spectrum disorder, unless they were on the behaviorally severe end of the spectrum. So, I wasn't autistic. I was just the weird girl who had to be taught to make eye contact, wildly misinterpreted social rules, and was generally understood by my peers to have problems. It was not a great experience, especially because I assumed I was inherently wrong and bad at being a person, rather than having a different neurological setup. At least you found out at 18 whether the diagnosis matches your experience or not. Only you can know, but you have the information now to make a decision on whether to pursue it further. Parents who are arrogant enough to hide a shameful diagnosis from their child and pretend everything is fine when the child is clearly suffering. I'm not going to react well to being confronted about it. Only do it if you feel safe. Yes, and advice. Okay guys, let's move on to an update. It's almost been half a year. I ended up confronting my parents. I'm 18, female. Shortly after I wrote that post, I set out to find out if the diagnosis was true. I found and called the doctors who diagnosed me. I met with professionals, and I even made a 2-hour trip to an ASD association before work. I had a summer job at the time. All of these confirmed that the diagnosis was true. I was offered retesting, but it's no longer free as I'm now 18. I hadn't thought of confronting my parents because I was scared of their reaction. On the day I left to go to the association, I left home very early, and my mom noticed my absence. I was very scared. I told her a lie at first, but then told her the truth and explained everything to her. She denied I had ASD at first, but then she changed her mind. She said she knew all along and nobody had actually suggested the diagnosis had been incorrect. I asked her when she planned on telling me. She said she didn't know. She offered me some emotional support. My dad was involved in the conversation at some point. He denied everything and brushed me off as being overly anxious. He then asked if I wanted to drop out of university and go to a psychiatric institution. I love my parents, but I don't know how to feel. I resent them a little. I feel like I should have been told at some point. A lot of things in my life, especially in my early childhood, make sense now. But maybe they would have never made sense if I had not discovered my old diagnosis. Sometimes I think I could have had a better life if I had known and received support. Yeah, honestly, you can discuss all day about whether something like that would have changed your life for the better over the long run, but one thing's for certain. It definitely wouldn't have made it worse. I think that absolutely is a responsibility on the parents to let the child know about the test that they had done.